Hello everyone, today I will be comparing true experimental, quasi-experimental, and ex post facto research designs. Those research designs are on the quantitative side of research, so I will be focusing on the rest of this PowerPoint on that side. Quantitative research deals with numbers. It also is utilized to predict, control, or generalize the standard population. Typical approaches are to employ closed-ended questions, predetermined approaches, and numerical data. Practices that are utilized within this are to test or verify theories or explanation. It utilizes validity and reliability. It has unbiased approaches and statistical procedures. Research on the quantitative side are either experimental or non-experimental. Experimental can come in the form of true experimental or quasi, whereas non-experimental comes in many forms, but today I will solely focus on ex post facto under that area. True experimental is your traditional research. The investigator completely controls the experimental setting, the active variables, and greater internal validity. Randomization is at an all-time high as they randomly assign individuals to conditions, they randomly assign them to groups, and those groups are fully defined. It is very possible to establish a cause and effect relationship. An example of this within my area are individuals are randomly assigned to a control group or a physical activities group, and perceived body awareness is then measured. Quasi-experimental design, while it mimics true experimental, there are a few exceptions, and those are listed below. The investigator cannot fully control the experimental or independent setting. Attribute variables are very much active, meaning you cannot change a pupil's age, whether a person's an athlete, the gender of a person, etc. Manipulation of independent variable, while it may occur, it occurs in the form of intervention training, drug therapy, or in some other form. Establishment of cause and effect relationship is not immediately feasible, and there is a greater external validity. An example of this is the effects of a walking club on elementary children within an urban school district. The last design I want to talk about is your ex post facto design, which seeks to find relationships between independent and dependent variables after an action or event has occurred. Ex post facto is defined in Latin as after the fact and referred to in the research community as a causal comparative design. The investigator compares between groups after the fact or after the event has occurred. There's no manipulation of independent variables. Cause and effect relationships cannot be implied, and the investigator will take steps to strengthen the internal validity by imposing selection techniques, homogeneous subgroups, or analysis of covariance. An example of this is comparing weekly moderate to vigorous physical activity for third grade pupils at urban and rural elementary schools. When comparing these three across the board, there are things that obviously where two of them will fit and where three of them will fit together. True experimental and quasi-experimental both allow treatment or condition, and they measure outcome and related to treatment, whereas quasi-experimental and ex post facto lack randomization, cause and effect relationships cannot be implied, and they work with groups that already exist, so no randomization. When it comes to comparing group variables, outcomes, and performances, identifiable independent and dependent variables, and determining what effect the independent variable may or may not have on the dependent variable, all three of these experimental designs allow those things to occur, which are true experimental, quasi-experimental, and ex post facto. This last slide shows the references I used in which to put this PowerPoint selection together, and thank you.